figured the insurance was net sum zero.
Okay. When I read the openings earlier, does that have any impact at all? Because I know there are openings, and there's been about that many openings, maybe a few more this year. There's a few less correctional officers, but
I'm pretty sure, except for the one exception in the auditor's office, all the openings were included in the budget.
It may be that that's why we had a little bit of excess funds in there if we're calculating for positions that are open. Maybe why we have a little excess funds in the insurance fund.
Yeah, because I don't think during our budget sessions, we removed any positions at all from the budget. So I think all those openings are still in the 23 budget to be filled, with the exception of the one in the auditor's office. And she said she wants it back.
okay, not a problem.
So that does change the calculation slightly.
Okay,
Well, not slightly, to the tune of,
Okay.
34,000 plus the raises would be in excess of 50.
so what you're saying is we actually only have $30,000 for raises? I mean, 300,000, pardon me, 300,000 for raises.
Chad, do you remember when we removed the position from the auditor's department, did we reduce the insurance fund, or did we say, we didn't increase the insurance fund, we said it could absorb it?
Yeah, we
So it's
didn't.
just the cost of the salary.
We actually reduced the insurance fund slightly during the commissioner's budget.
Right.
So we didn't go back to reduce it any further. Yeah, I'd have to pull it. I got it here. That sounds about right, Bobby.
So Kenan, if we,
It's actually $55,767 is what I
if we
got.
put the auditor position back in, it takes us to right at 300.
Okay,
No, 315.
okay, at 315, I calculated over the weekend, and I ran it by you too, and you didn't disagree, I don't think. It takes about 80,000 for 1%. And we're
Well,
looking
it
at
takes
general
90
fund.
It takes 96,000, including 95,000, including the bennies, or
Including the
fringe and
benefits.
stuff. So you're looking at, takes 95,000 per. So we're just right at an average of 3%.
Okay, well, that's all we can do, but I know the council has said that, and Paige agreed, that we don't want to exceed, it's dangerous to exceed disbursements over revenues. In other words, as Chad pointed out, it's not a balanced budget. There's risk in that. And every year since 2019, we've balanced the budget. And every year we've gone from a 0% cash reserve to 6.5%, 7% cash reserve the next year, to a 14-something cash reserve last year, to a 20% this year. The point I was trying to make on our last meeting on the 10th was that by doing that, following their economic and financial recommendation, we've been putting money back. And my proposal to Paige was, every year by balancing that, we have put a little bit more back. And we're finally, according to Jason, where we solidly need to be financially as a county, that we're pretty solvent, which we were not in January of 2019. So I was willing to take a little risk, and Paige recommended it would be a risk, not knowing what the economy and what the state of the union, so to speak, is going to be. It would be risky. I got the sense on the 10th, the council as a whole was not wishing to take that risk. Did I read that correctly, the tea leaves?
Correct.
Yeah, that was the way I felt.
Okay. Well, I tried to run that past Paige, and she recommended against it. So I even gave her a proposal that would leave 17.5% in the cash reserves, and that would have been $430,000 for raises, leaving 520 of the 950 we were able to cut, which would leave a cash balance of $2 million. That she said $2,765,000. Subtract the difference of $91,000 would leave 2.6 million divided by 15.3 million would leave a 17.5% cash reserve. And they've told us the last 3 years we need to leave at least a 15% cash reserve. And even presenting that case to her, she recommended a balanced budget. So the rest of the council was thinking the same as Baker Tilly. Okay. What our proposal was, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd come up with a spreadsheet, Chad, and I'd come up with a spreadsheet that tried to give those that were furthest below low market, Wagner, Irwin, Shealy, the larger raises, correct? And
Yes,
I
what
didn't get you had
what
that
we
in
ended
front
up
of you.
settling on was anything at or above low market would get $750. Anything up to 5% under low market was $1,000. Anything 5% to 10% was $1,500. And then anything over 10% under low market was a $2,500 raise for the
Polls.
for the general. And then for the sheriff's department, the only difference was the road deputies were at a $3,000 raise.
What about correctional officers?
Correction officers were still at the same percentages. But the majority of them are, like the poll 2 positions is 21% under low market value. Their pay is 21% under the low market. So it's quite a big number difference,
So most of them would be getting the what amount?
the 2,500.
Okay. All right.
With the exception of the supervisors, because they are also poll 4s, which is the same designation as the road deputies. It's in the same classification. So because we pay by class standard, then they would also get the $3,000 raise for the supervisors at the corrections officers.
And what was the total cost of that, Chad?
Of which, Susan, the total overall in the general, or?
Yes.
Okay, the total overall in the general, let me go back to this, because I was just getting ready to figure this, because we got to add some things back in, was $292,500 before the 19%. So we're going to be over. By the time we add back in the 34,000, I think we're going to be short. So yeah, we're looking at $350,000 is what we would need, and we have $300,000. So we're going to have to find a way to cut $50,000 out of this to come up with to stay under by adding the position back in.
The only thing I could add is there's a possibility, and I don't know how high it is, that Lisa may get back with some numbers. I shared with, at this particular point, it was midnight last night, so I don't know who I shared it with. I know I shared it with Chad and Susan, because we were on an hour and a half conference call last night trying to brainstorm what needed to be done today. So you guys had, I put down possibilities for Lisa to comment that might go into a general obligation GO bond at the end of the year. That was in the general fund 2023 proposed budget. I had equipment maintenance, which I'm doubtful that she'll approve, out of the auditor's department of $2,000 to go instead of the general fund to the GO bond. I had equipment, services, and repairs from the prosecutor, $13,000, which might be a possibility to go in the GEO bond. I had repair of equipment and a printer in the extension office, what I think we maybe poo-pooed, I don't recall, 2,000. Pictometry, 30,000 from the council budget. She's going to comment on it. I have my doubts. Equipment upgrade from circuit courts of 4,000. She's going to comment on if that could go into the GEO bond. Furniture and fixtures in the circuit court of 1,000. Not going to help, but it all adds up. Circuit court, 1,000. Office machines from probation, 2,000. Computer upgrade for the jail. We may have already moved that into the jail lit. 4,500. I ran it past Lisa from Ice Miller. The jail water softener at 14,560. I ran past her to see if we could tap in the GEO bond and save money for raises in the general fund, and equipment maintenance from child support of 2,000. I have my doubts. I know.
I think my personal opinion of your list, Kenan, there may be a couple things that could be the office machines, the furnitures and fixtures, but the water softener is like your water bill. That's the monthly utilities. That's not going to qualify. Pictometry is a yearly fee, putting that in there. How are you going to pay for it next year? You know, you're going to have to cut the budget next year, $30,000 somewhere. And I don't think it's a yearly type subscription, right, Jody? Is that correct? So it's like a reoccurring maintenance fee. So I don't think, I think there may be three or four, but we cut everything we could and moved everything we could into the other funds.
So, and I think the commissioners would have to approve funding those out of the GEO bond this next year.
Okay.
What about the jail lit for the one correctional officer?
That's a possibility if we have the money, but then again, that kind of goes along with what Chad was saying. The Piper is going to call in the budget eventually. There's a lot of openings, but it's dangerous to say which openings are going to still be open into perpetuity. I mean, that's guess, and it's dangerous.
But we had a little bit left to use of the 20%.
Yeah, do you remember, Chad, how much that was that we?
Well, we have quite a bit actually of the 20%, but what we don't have is much of the revenue that's coming in every year. Because of the 20%, we get about $1.9 million. We can use $380,000, but we only get about $230,000, $230-some thousand a year to use, and we budgeted $200,000 of that.
Are you saying because we used more than 80% for the?
No. So we can use up to 20% of that fund for anything basically related to the jail. But we don't have 20% left because we spent as much as we possibly could to build the jail. So we only have about 12% of yearly funds that are unaccounted for in the bond. So of that is about $230-some thousand. I don't have it in front of me, but we budgeted $200,000 of that with like the water softener, the maintenance that we moved over there, the video we moved in there, the uniforms we moved in there. So we've budgeted the majority of it. We have $35,000, $40,000 potentially to play with, but that's it. Well, and then that would basically completely use up every extra penny that fund got every year. It has a very healthy balance. It has a very healthy balance of nearly $3 million. But that $3 million would also go an awful long way into looking at building that new pod down the road. Or if you get a bad economic downturn, and all of a sudden we need 1.7 million to pay the bond, and we drop 12%. That's all we get. You know, that's because it's happened. 7, 8, and 9, the county's revenue dropped by as much as 13, 14% in those, because that's a completely income tax base program. So if we have a really bad recession, and the income tax, and several people here get laid off, and they don't have jobs in the, throughout our county employers, then it wouldn't, we did that in 7, 8, and 9, so it's not unheard of to go through that kind of recession, where all of a sudden our payment to the bank would be more than we're actually making.
And I think what you just said was where Paige was coming from. She said you could do that, Kenan, but there's a danger to doing that because we're finally at a balance that would get us through, 6 months of a rough spot if the bottom fell out. But if the bottom really fell out, that's not gonna help you a whole lot.
Well, and I would only say a couple things on Kenan's front message that he made. He gave a lot of numbers. But the bottom line is, this county has one of the lowest assessed values of any of our peers. We have the highest tax rate of any of our peers, and we have the highest debt of any of our peers by 3 times. Our debt service, and that doesn't count the jail. That's just these normal bonds and loans and basic things we're doing. That is not the jail, because the jail is a totally separate tax on its own. If you throw that in there, it's staggering. But just our normal everyday borrowing is 3 times what any of our peers are, because we have a huge debt service. We pay huge bills every month because that's the way this county has operated for several years, because we have the lowest assessed values. We have the highest tax rate too, because we've had to institute all of these taxes to pay the bills. So it makes it a very difficult position to sit up here, because in our budget, in the general fund budget right now, I would venture to guess that 90+% is everybody sitting out here. It's your salaries, it's your benefits, it's your perf, and it goes to that. All the rest of the bills get paid out of these extra tax funds, like the CCD fund that is at the highest of any of our peers. The jail lit fund, the safety lit fund, it pays, and then our department heads have done a phenomenal job of utilizing like Linda pulls her part-time out of her perpetuation fund. Joe, over the prosecutor's office, pays for nearly everything in his office out of his perpetuation fund. The sheriff pays for all kinds of things out of his commissary and other things that free up general fund monies to come back to the employees. So we've kind of tapped everything that's out there, and we're scraping to figure it out.
One of the things you just mentioned, Chad, was I think most entities, at least 80% of their budget goes to employees, personnel, and including the fringe benefits. As I said earlier, when you met with some of us before we even took office and said you had just caught wind that first thing we have to do is look at a $750,000 deficit in insurance projections before day one. And we tackled that. Unfortunately, the only way we could tackle that was to have more payroll deduction taken out of employees. How much, you're in the biz, how much of the total insurance package does the county pay percentage-wise versus the employee pay? And how does that compare with the industry, would you say?
So the county pays roughly 85% of the plan for everybody, which is unusual for the market. There's a lot of employers that will pay their employees that high, but there are several, like my own, my company pays very little of the benefits for the dependents, and most pay at most 50% of the benefits for the dependents. But the county pays that across the board for dependents and for the employees themselves, which is very unusual in this current insurance market.
The other thing I was going to say, one of the things that Baker Tilly gives us in their annual comprehensive financial plan, which is a 5-year plan that they updated this July, last month. Our local income taxes, we provide 0.25% property tax relief to take the sting off of the fact that we have low assessed valuation and high tax rates. So some of that goes back to offset the taxpayer. We're allowed 2.5% in optional income taxes. When the state instituted a constitutional mandate to tax caps back in 25-6, and that's about the time that we started. Then there was a recession in 08. There was a perfect storm where we had good balances, and all of a sudden between the tax caps and the recession, we went from great balances to slim pickings as far as balances, and that was the perfect storm that Baker Tilly informed us when they first met with us in early 2019. All counties except Marion, they have a special that they can go above this 2.5%. We have 1% goes to school distribution. That's common across the state. Public safety, the safety lit was implemented here. I don't know what year, but it's implemented. 0.25% tax rate. We have not implemented in this county an economic development, so that's 0%. And then we have a 0.2 on the jail tax. In our budget hearings, pre-budget hearings with department head, a couple of department heads suggested that we add or tap a special purpose tax. And I'm not sure any of us were really seriously considering that, but when we started getting the report from AIC that we're the highest tax rate of all counties in Indiana our size, we kind of pressed the pause button on that. But at any rate, a couple of years ago, I got on Gateway, I think it was, from the state, and we were smack dab in the middle of 92 counties. We were like 45, 46 on the amount of percentage of these 2.5% that we could tax. But, you'll have to pardon me, but our median household income is a lot lower than the median in the state. So according to ability to pay on our taxpayers, we probably tax them higher given our low median household income than most of the counties. But we are,
Yeah,
you
we
looked
are,
it up too. We're in the
if I'm
middle.
not mistaken, we are at the bottom 5 of the, we are one of the poorest counties in the state of Indiana. And we have, that's what, so that on top of the low assessed value, and then throw tax caps on top of that, the county alone loses over $2 million a year from tax caps. Where I'm sure there's several sitting out here that you've hit the tax caps on your homes, especially if you live in the city. And Jody can speak to that. She knows what kind of a impact it does to the county, because that 1% on residential is huge. And there's many of us, if you look, you see the circuit breaker on your taxes. You'll see that circuit breaker, and some of them are hundreds, some thousands of dollars that people are not paying because of the tax caps. And trust me, $2 million to $15 million is a big number. We could give everybody huge raises if we had $2 million. We could do a lot with $2 million. But unfortunately, the state legislature sits up there and smiles about their billions of dollars they have in the bank, while the counties like us sit out here virtually paycheck to paycheck.
And it's not only counties. Tom Saunders is the only Republican that voted against Mitch Daniels's putting the tax caps in the Constitution. He was called into Mitch Daniels's office and said, "You will vote for this." He said, I will not vote for this because I know what it's going to do to my counties and municipalities and cities. It's going to put a strain on their budgets, so I will not vote for this. He did not vote for that. The only Republican that did not vote for the tax caps because he foresaw what that was going to do to county budgets and cities and towns' budgets, and it did. The city, I'm not going to speak for Newcastle, but they're hurting, we're hurting, especially since Chrysler went out, Modern Fold went out, Metaldyne went out, Allegheny went out, Dana went out. The list goes on and on. We're not where we were pretty prosperous back in the 70s and 80s. Actually, we were very prosperous. And then the tax caps came in, I think in, I don't know the years, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. I know it had an effect on schools, it had an effect on counties, it had an effect on cities and towns, as Tom Saunders said it would. He was punished dearly for making that call politically.
Kenan, Peg was just reminding me she needs to leave at 9:30.
Okay.
And I was...
But what does the rest of you have in mind? I was just setting up the dilemma that we're in, trying to make meaningful raises with limited budgets, and I kind of...
Can I talk for a second about the SO positions?
You can talk all you want, because I've talked enough.
For the sake of the people in the audience, and Kenan and Chad and I brainstormed for over an hour last night about how we've had one department head offer up a position during budget, another potentially offer up one after budget, how we could return those funds to a department, as those people will be picking up more work. And we have not been able to come up with a way to do that without ditching the job classification or making everyone an SO. And those don't seem to be good options. So I don't know if Ann has any suggestions, but I floated another idea by Kenan and Chad today because I'm having a hard time letting it go, because I really think that if people take on more work, they should be rewarded for it. But it doesn't seem to be that it would work, but I wanted to run it by Ann. Is there any way that we could create an additional pay like we do with longevity? And that additional pay could be something like absorbing work from attrition. And it could be that everyone in the job class is paid the same, but those people who have absorbed more work through attrition would get an additional pay added. It's not based on years of service. It would be based on whether or not. So in my scenario, my hypothetical scenario that I took to Kenan and Chad, if a department head offers up a position, they could come to the council at their request and request an additional pay for their people who've picked up more work. And it would be a set amount that would be added on to their base pay, which is based on job classification, at the department head's request because they've picked up additional work.
My concern with it, and I told Susan, is that because we pay by class, I'm worried that we could create a potential lawsuit opening. But I'm not an expert, so that's why I wanted to get your thoughts, because that, you know, I know we've already ran into this in the past and had to pay tens of thousands of dollars in back pays. And so I don't want to open the county up to that kind of liability.
Okay.
But we could create SO positions.
What's the difference in like Jody's office gets certification pay? They get additional pay on top of their...
Because it's an educational pay that's set by the state. It's an ordinance from the state that pays them because of their education and their experience.
It's required by the job, is that correct? Jody, it's required by the job.
So I feel very locked in with our options for how we can do that.
Yeah, and I feel very strongly that we shouldn't take away positions, put a bunch more work on people only to get a very small raise or the same raise. I mean, and then I also worry about other departments, like Jenny is a perfect example. She cut 2 employees and dropped 1 employee in the classification, saved the county well over $100,000 a year, but because she's already done hers, she doesn't have any more to give. And so I don't feel like it's right to penalize the clerk's department because they already did that willingly without a bartering type scenario. So it's a difficult situation.
Just off the top of my head, if that's going to happen within a department, then maybe change the class category from a COMAT 2 to a COMAT 3 to base that. I mean, that's logistically acceptable because you're changing, and if it's going to be more duties, they would have to rewrite those job descriptions anyway. So if it's COMAT 2, it's $30,000 a year. If it's a COMAT, bump it up to to a COMAT 3, it'd be $31,177.
Do we ever do that without sending it to Wagner, Irwin, and Shields?
Well, we would have to rewrite, just update the job description. So to me, again, just following in our policies and logistically doing that within the job classifications, that would be probably more feasible than just creating a whole new pay scale, because I think that would be kind of a nightmare unless you do some research and then it meets the qualifications between the council, then to the commissioners as far as what the policies have.
Do those job classifications, are they based on the type of work someone does or the amount of work that somebody does, or both?
Well, right now it's based on what they do and the processes, but there again, if you're going to close one job and disperse those duties otherwise, then that would add to there may be a bare minimum of criteria, then there may be a threshold of some sort. But once they do that, and I send that over to Wagner and Sheila, they would think, aha, so you've got more here, more responsibilities, more accountability, and that may throw it up 1 to 2 levels.
So it would be, it's possible that someone would move up a job classification.
Correct. And if we had started doing this, because we talked about it last year, the expense that's there to redo that, I mean, if we do a few at a time, one COMAT's going to kind of affect another COMAT position, and it may just kind of have a domino theory then to the other COMATs, if that's the case in every department where they're going to disperse.
Not necessarily, though, because, for example, if Debbie's department gives up a job, Jody's department gives up a job, then it may not be that Bill's same COMAT 3s would have the exact same
Right.
job descriptions at that point. But my only concern is then we need to go back and look at Jenny's, because Jenny's department did that, and she gave up. I'm right, Jenny 2. I mean, you only have, is it 10 or 11 total to start with? Or? Okay. So, I mean, she's already given up almost 15% of her department, and obviously that work just didn't go away with them. That stayed in there, and they had to increase it, but I don't think any of her, well, actually, she did change one of her classes down. So, I mean, I don't think...
But again, that would be based on the point factors that they would do on those criteria and then the threshold of the job description being altered. That help?
It does, but that's going to be a way bigger process than we could ever accomplish by Thursday of this week.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I know somebody's talking to Ann, but could you come up to the microphone, please? Because we're broadcasting and we start getting text.
They yell at us if people don't talk in the mic. I'm sorry.
We've got a lot of text the last 3
Can I
weeks.
just talk? Chad, these offices that are giving up positions and they're not replacing, can you not disperse that money within their department to get a raise for those employees?
Because we pay by class, if, let's say, for example, and you're in one of those departments, if we were to disperse it differently to you than someone in Jody's office who has the same class as you, we open ourselves up to a lawsuit because we pay by class. So the only way we could do that is to do away with your class and call you a special occupation. And they're generally following that special occupation is some type of an education, certification, something that makes that different as an SO. Because remember, I know you were in the department that ran into this where we had a class issue and we paid someone tens of thousands of dollars. So because we pay by class, it sounds easy, but that's what really kind of makes that very difficult to do.
Okay.
We have to, so that's where Ann's suggestion of changing your class to, I don't know, are you a comment 3 or comment 4 now? I don't know exactly. Do you know, Deb? I mean, but if you're like a comment 3 or comment 4, bump you to you're a comment 4, so bump you to a comment 5 because of your experience. You know, you're taking on more work. Then we could theoretically bump you to a comment 5, and then you would get comment 5 pay, which comment 4 pay is $35,400, comment 5 pay is $36,999. So it would bump you that increase without, you know, any issues in the class system.
So when you talk about classification, I understand this, but like Jody's office classification, her job is different than what we do. I mean, we couldn't go up to Jody's office and do what she's doing. Can
Well-
you not change the classification for the department?
No, we don't do it that way. We basically, your class is based on the type of work you do and the amount of work you do. And so you may have, you're a class 4, but as a class 4, we have auditors, we have clerks, we have or you're a comment 4. There are currently auditor's office, comment 4s. There are clerks, there are community corrections, there's probation, prosecutor, public defender, all have comment 4s as part of their department in the general fund budget.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure maybe even the sheriff or jail may, I mean, so it's, yeah, jail has a comment 4 as well.
Okay.
So it's kind of, Wagner says, okay, tell me what you do. Then there's a point system. They put a point system to it, and then they say, okay, you fall in this class based on your point system. This is where you are. So they don't necessarily look that you're in the auditor's office and, you know, someone else is over in the jail. That doesn't matter because they add up your points based on the workload you do and the type of work you do, and then they say, okay, you're a comment 4.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry, I know it wasn't a great answer, but it's the best I got.
One of the things, pardon me, one of the things that Wagner and Shealy did point out, because you were talking about job categories, for example, comment 3s are one of the highest categories we have in this county that are the furthest below market, either low or high. Full market. Full market is the central Indiana counties that include Hamilton, Marion, Boone, et cetera, that are much higher assessed valuations and tax revenues than we have. But at any rate, our comment 3s are nearly 21% below full market. Our comment 3s are 8.8% below low market. our goal has been to try to boost as many people as possible closer to low market, knowing that we'll never compete with the Hamilton counties of the world or the Indiana. The next category that's below, hold on, I mean a lot below, are PAT 2s. Right. PAT 2s are also 8.9% by and large below low market. So Comet 3s and PAT 2s are considerably below. And the PAT 2 over in the health department is 14% below low market. They have their own tax rate, so Wagner, Irwin, Shealy didn't point that out as a discrepancy. Also, PAT 3s are over 10% below low market. Yeah, we get into the jail. It's our correctional officers, we have 18, are 14% below low market, 21% below full market. And this is after a $3,000 raise last year. Last year, they were like 30% below. And the turnover was astronomical. Because they could, for example, they could go to GEO and get paid thousands of
And
dollars
if you remember,
more.
Kennan said there was, what, nearly 10 positions open, and that's why they're open, folks. They can go out and drive 5 more minutes, right across the street now, literally right across the street, and go to GEO and make $22 an hour versus 16.
So we're trying to, our whole goal has been trying to lower that discrepancy between the information we get from Wagner, Irwin, Shealy. And one of our comments that we made in a previous budget hearing this month was trying to get Wagner, Irwin, Shealy, and and give us an update, because I did not know, because it was prior to our time on. They used to come and give, I don't know, biannual or regular updates as to what they do, and to have a Q&A session. Because I know several people said, why are we paying Wagner, Irwin, Shealy these thousands of dollars? Why are we paying Baker Tilly these thousands of dollars? Well, Baker Tilly, we're doing that because they keep us advising us that we should not go beyond a balanced budget, that we've been doing a good job getting the cash balances that they recommend, which is a minimum of 15%. We were at 0% on January 1, 2019. We built it up next year with the $950,000 that we cut over the 4 budget hearings. We're going to be close to 20%, according to my calculations, and I think Paige reiterated that. But in a conference call with Jason Simler on Friday, he said, Kennan, really you need to be what we really, really recommend, and you've done a good job boosting it from 0 to 15 to projected 20. He said, we feel really safe 20 to 25. The absolute minimum is 15. We've exceeded the 15 last year. Right now we're on forecast to be 20%. But if we have any kind of economic downturn, it's going to eat that up within 6 months.
And the real reason for that, let's just break it down to everybody. What matters to you is that if we don't have a cushion and we go through an economic downturn, we only have one place to cut. And because, again, 90% of our budget is people and benefits. So we want that cushion to ensure that we don't have to get into that dangerous level where we may have to consider laying off some people or doing any of that stuff. So a cushion is very important to all of us, including each and every one of you, because, like I said, if we go through one of those 7, 8, 9s, it protects everybody in here too. So that's the reality. I mean, I know Kennan's great about giving the real numbers. I want to be honest, that's the real bottom line, is what this does, is it's our savings account. It's just like your savings account at home. It's that 6-month emergency fund everybody wants to talk about. If something happens, that's what that is for us. It ensures that we don't have to do anything drastic within our county. It buys us some time to figure out some options.
Hey, Kennan, do you think we're ready to reach consensus on a few things here?
That's exactly my thought.
I've got a question, Kennan.
Yeah.
What's the difference money-wise from the 15 to 20%? The cash balance.
Let me find the.
Well, we have about a $15 million budget, so 5% is $750,000.
Well, Kyle, the proposal I sent out to Paige last week was the $950,000 that we were able to cut. I proposed, to leave a 15%, actually 15.5% would be $300,000 to cut the 600,000 net cash flow negative, and would give $650K for raises of the 950. That would leave us with a 15.5%, and that, Kyle, is what Paige argued against. She said it is always dangerous in an uncertain financial climate to spend more than anticipated receipts, which is what the rest of the council left with on the 10th. So it would take 650,000 raises and only leaving 300, which would leave 300 negative net flow, well, 311 net flow, and she was advising against. But that would give 650 in raises. That did not count anything we had theoretically talked about the last time we met, which were cuts in the auditors, and since then possibly the assessor's office. At that time that we left it, we would leave 15.5%. I mentioned to Paige that they had said the last 3 years you need to be a minimum of 15% cash reserves in your general fund. She said, yeah, but that's dangerous because you're giving salary increases that's in perpetuity, and you don't know what the economic future is going to be. She just said that was dangerous, and I left it at that. In other words, you were right in my attempt to squeeze blood out of a turnip. She said there's a liability and a danger to that. I don't know if I answered your question or not. Did I?
Yeah, I'm just trying to help get the exact number that we need. We're looking for to get the raises that we want so that everybody that's here today can kind of jump to that and understand it.
It would mean in the
We've had so many numbers and statistics, just like a quick, this is what we want, this is what we need, so that we can recap for everybody.
I think we need to start with consensus to return Debbie's position to her, because until we decide one way or the other, we don't have a number to work with.
Okay. She'd asked to get that back. Is there a consensus heading into Thursday's meeting that we consider that and do that, and so we can actually have raw numbers that are accurate?
Well, I stand by what I said earlier, that I think if a department is willing to give up a person and that workload goes around, but we can only give the basic raises, then that doesn't make sense to me, because we're pushing a lot more work on people that they're getting the same raise as everybody else. So if we are not able to incentivize in that way or change the comment levels or consider SOs, then my opinion is that we return it.
I will say, just with the caveat that, Jenny still returned positions when it didn't benefit her department because it was the right thing to do. You don't have to interrupt me while I'm talking. If you'd like to speak, you can come up here. And so I wouldn't say it as strongly as Chad that we should never ask any department to return headcount if they don't need it. But I agree that we shouldn't force it as well.
You keep saying how Jenny gave back 2. We gave back 2 also.
Okay, thank you
And we didn't
very
ask for
much.
anything then.
Okay, thank you for that. So do we have consensus that we're returning the position?
Speak up.
I have one
I
more.
don't know if you guys can hear me. This is Betsy. Been listening the whole time. Sorry, it's the first day of the semester and I'm between meetings and it's crazy. But Kenan, thank you for your opening salvo. It was brilliant. I'm in consensus. Susan, I really appreciated your framing as well as Chad's. Might as well give it back, but really appreciate everybody who's willing to step up and try to do their very best for our county's budgets.
Thank you, and good luck on your first day. I've been there, and it's challenging. I'm not sure we need a vote. Is everybody in favor of giving that position back so we can start back where we were, probably around 3 o'clock on the 10th?
We need one more for consensus. Kenan, are you in favor of returning the position?
I'm in favor so that we could proceed with coming to some kind of...
So Chad, do you have a number for us if we return the position?
So again, if we return that position, we're looking at roughly $300,000. And we're currently sitting at around $347,000 required to give the raises that we had initially required. So we're off by $47,000+, give or take.
So we could potentially take one CO to the jail lit and use it all and pass the raises as we proposed, or we have to reduce the raises probably.
Which would mean the raises would be just slightly over 3%.
On average.
Right.
That's the average. It's not
Right.
every person. It would range from $7,500 to, or $750 to $3,000.
The jail and sheriff's department would be getting, that include 911 because we're talking poll. Okay, and 911 would be getting 3,000?
No, 911 are poll threes, so they get 2,500.
Okay,
Jail are mostly poll twos and threes, and then there's a few poll fours. The poll fours are the ones that would get the 3,000, which is the road deputies.
okay, they got less last year.
Yes.
They got 1,750, where the correction officers got
actually-
3,000.
They actually got 2,750 last year.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, and I know they had a healthy central pay in ARP too, but that's one time only. So
And
what's-
basically, the raise for the road deputies would just take them up to what the city police makes this year.
Right,
And they get every year raises, so next year they'll be paid less again because they're a union and they get yearly raises. So
so did I have a suggestion from somebody? I know you started, Susan, Chad.
Those are just the only two options that I can think of.
Is there a preference?
I'm very concerned, and again, I'm not going to be here, but for how many days, Rick? 129 days, we've hit the 20s. I would be concerned sitting in this seat in the future years with the economic downturn we're looking at to utilize 100% of the jail lit.
Yeah, I think
Because
that's
that's my concern. But I also don't know where in this budget that we have literally cut everything we possibly can to the point of we would start cutting meat, as we said, instead of fat. There is no fat in this budget at all. We cut meat already this year, and so I don't know where we would come up with. So there's three options: cut meat, move an employee and utilize 100% of that jail fund, or reduce the raises. That's the only three options that we really have available for us.
And the one I brought up earlier, Lisa getting back with us, I think is going to be minuscule at best.
Yeah, I think at best you're talking a few dollars that she may be able to come up with, because we've already moved all of those things, like the jail vehicles, like all this, the uniforms, everything that we could move out of the general fund. The only thing left in the general fund's people and bills.
Here's my one concern, as we talk about moving everything into the jail lit. When that safety lit was put in, it was to be used for X amount of things, and everything got moved into that safety lit to fund the sheriff's department, and it was no longer used for what it was intended for. And that is my concern of shifting things to the jail lit, because then we're just shifting things around, and we're going to be in the exact same position that we were with the safety lit. is my only concern.
And I absolutely agree with you, Bobby, and that's why the one thing we moved into that, the biggest thing we moved into that was the maintenance of the jail, which makes sense, to move that $150,000 maintenance of the jail into the jail lit, which I will just add, the major just sent me a text a few minutes ago. Had we started the jail right now, like another county did, their jail cost them $38 million, and they're building the exact same building we built for $24 million. Whitley County, thank you. Yeah, 38 million versus 24 million. We could have never built that jail if we didn't do it exactly when we did it.
That
So-
Columbia City? Yeah.
So, but yeah, I agree. I think, so that's why what I strategically tried to move in there was just everything, video maintenance from the jail maintenance.
Okay.
I mean,
So what I'm hearing is, from two of you, and Bobby, was that you're not comfortable with going any deeper, in other words, utilizing 100% or nearly 100% of the jail lit for reasons that you shared. So right now, I think we're back to where we were 3 o'clock on August the 10th, which would be roughly a 3% raise overall, but it'd be less for non-poll workers.
Bobby, I know you're the only commissioner here, but can I ask a couple questions? I know we lowered your legal down to 140 versus 190. Do you think there's any more cushion in there at all? I mean, I know it's kind of a guess, but I know we got rid of a 6-figure expense with the ACLU
Yeah.
lawsuit, and we kind of only ate up half of that. Because here's my thoughts. Could we lower that 25 more, and could we, since we are such a healthy balance in the insurance fund, and we still increased it, and you were willing to give,
you can lower
you
it
were
however
willing to
you
give it
want to,
100.
but I can't foresee the future to see what,
Well-
if there's another lawsuit. I mean, I don't,
I know, but I mean, I'm just trying to I'm trying to,
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate the struggle that you guys have trying to give raises. I truly do. And I think most everybody here, and I can't speak for everybody here, I just know I've talked to a lot of employees, and most of the statements were made, we would prefer no raises versus changing our benefits. Now, I don't know if people still feel that way, if they see that you're struggling trying to give raises now that may not be sustainable in 3 years, because we don't know. Would they rather not get a raise now, I guess is the question to ask, not get a raise now or potentially have your position cut in 3 years? I mean, and I appreciate which is why I'm not on the council. I appreciate everything that you guys are going through, but sometimes what we want to do is maybe not what right now is not the right now to do. Maybe we don't do it now and we look at it next year. Maybe it's going to be better than what we think next year, the projections. But I would rather, me personally, and I can't tell you what to do, I would rather put this on hold, a raise on hold this year, because maybe we could have a better balance next year. Maybe the projections are not going to be as bad next year. That's just my personal opinion. Obviously, I can't speak for everybody in this room.
Right. We're gonna give raises. It's just not as much as we would like.
I
in the
understand, but
inflation.
sometimes the better answer is no, and we'll look at it again next year. But you guys can do whatever you want to do. I'm just giving you my personal opinion.
I think everybody wants to do the right thing, and everybody wants to give as large a
Well, but
raise as
sometimes the right
possible.
thing may not be a raise. I mean, I'm just saying, sometimes,
Well,
sometimes you guys, most of you guys are all parents, sometimes the right thing is, we can't do it right now, but maybe next year.
Okay.
Sometimes the right thing is, we wanted to do this is how we're wanting to do this, but sometimes the right thing is to say, you know what, we're just not so sure where things are going to go next year, and we have to say no
But we
this
say
year.
that every year. We don't know every year
you know,
what's
I
going to happen
understand.
on insurance, what's
I
going to
understand.
happen on lawsuits.
Sure.
Mostly, it's a lot of it's projections and advice that we get from professionals in the business. We are going to give a raise.
Well,
That's not a
that's fine.
dispute.
I'm just saying, I'm just giving you my opinion.
Did she give you the answer
So-
your question? 'Cause I
I'll
wasn't
tell
sure.
you, there's two places in the,
You
I mean,
know-
the commissioner's budget's the biggest budget that we have, basically.
Sure it is.
And there's two places that I still think, and we discussed it with the insurance, The
And-
original cut was
and that's fine. You guys cut-
$110,000.
I have said
Can
at
I
every
please
budget
speak?
meeting, you guys
Can I
can
please
cut wherever
speak?
you need to
Bobby,
cut.
can I please speak?
Yeah,
And I'm
if you need to
speaking, you
cut,
don't need
cut
to
it.
interrupt me, thank you.
You're both talking over each other.
Yeah,
One
thank
at-
you.
One at a time, please.
So originally, we were at $110,000 on insurance. We discussed it and decided that we would split it in half. So I think there's an option there. I still think there may be some cushion in the legal that we could consider as well. I mean, I appreciate what Bobby said about not doing anything. My problem is, I mean, I know what it costs to go to the grocery store, the gas station, and everything else, and I think not doing a raise is the wrong thing. I think it would be wrong to not do a raise versus saying no, because I think even the raise we're going to give is going to be a third of what everybody in this room is paying for inflation at best. I mean, we're talking a 3%. So I think that is the wrong thing, in my opinion, to not do a raise this year. And that was the two funds that we have an extremely healthy balance in. If I'm not mistaken, it's nearly $1 million to the black in the insurance fund, correct? Bobby? Okay. So I think it's $1 million. So I think that we've gone from $750,000 in the hole when we started this job 4 years ago to now $1 million in the black. So I think we've definitely done some things there, and by the grace of God, employees have been relatively healthy, so that's helped too. Thank God. So, that's a good thing all the way around. But I think if we've got to come up with $50,000, my suggestion, I don't dislike your idea. I'm just concerned with using it all up. I think with the cushion in the insurance fund, we could take it all from there. Or if we feel that there's still enough of a cushion in the legal, take some of it from there as well.
So I have two thoughts about that. On to
No,
Chad.
I'm just going to say the same statement I made at the budget meetings. You guys cut what you need to cut. I've never argued I've never begged for you guys not to cut anything. If you need to cut it, cut it. We are still obligated to pay bills when they come in, so.
Probably the major cuts, we moved a lot over to the LITs. And we did some shifting that were legal and proper. Probably your budget did, because of the duplication in Meridian and some of the other things that we talked about. It is guesswork. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in insurance. We talked about all it takes is 2 or 3 major catastrophic medical events, and that what's our stop loss? I mean, what's the maximum we pay?
90,000,
How much?
90.
90, okay.
So
Pay the first 90.
We pay the first 90.
So even at that, it would have to be like 5 or 6 major to reach the 90 that would really dig into that $1 million that we have. But that million's going to be gone as the expenses come in, both the medical and the RX expenses come in.
I think for me, keeping that insurance fund really healthy is a protection against raising premiums too.
It is.
Oh, I don't disagree, but we're talking 5% of the balance.
How much are you talking?
$50,000 is 5% of the balance. And we still increased it from this year over last year too. So,
That would give everybody a 0.5% raise instead of 3. It would be everybody a 3.5.
On average, just so
Roughly.
people don't
What was the
think
other
they're
area?
getting something or not.
the legal, we was spending we had it originally budgeted 190. We dropped it to 140.
Yep.
But so far this year, we've only spent 34,000 in the first 7 months of this year.
And like
or 6
medical.
months of 6 months of this year.
Like medical, that could change
So we
in a
could
heartbeat.
split it and
Change
take
in a
half from
heartbeat.
each. Chad, we could take
Well, that was my
25 from
original
each.
thought, was to take 25 from each, but
I
those are
like
the
that
two.
better.
Those are the 2 areas that I think we could potentially tap if we absolutely had to.
And apparently, I know you're in insurance, you think the risk is minimal.
Well, I think, again, with $1 million in cushion, we would actually need like 11 people to have it maxed out completely capped out on the max and that's,
I think the most we've ever had is 3 or 4.
Yes,
That
exactly.
was the
So
year
I think
we
it's a
came in,
pretty,
it's 3 or 4
I think
major.
the reason that our predecessors drained that account was because unlike us budgeting expected, over-expected, like we're budgeting, they were budgeting under-expected and planned to utilize well, they plan to utilize their cushion as part of the bills. But we're budgeting what we expect to spend plus a little bit more. Last year, we budgeted expected plus 10. This year, we're expected plus 5. But we had that $1 million cushion.
Plus, Baker Tilly, every time they meet with us, say that their estimates, like the estimates on the GO bonds and the food and beverage, are on the conservative side. They don't do the last penny. They give a cushion of 10, 15% in case. So we follow that advice also, that we don't take it down to the last dollar.
And my comments about not saying no is because in 2 or 3 years, me personally, and again, this is just me, Bobby Plummer, speaking. I don't want to have to start this conversation again, assuming I'm still here, I don't know, of we need to reduce staff because we gave raises 2 years ago. Now we need to do a staff reduction by 5 people or 10 people or 20 people to cover the raises that we started 3 years ago. That's my only concern.
Understood. And we feel the same way. Because when we came in, there was a talk in the commissioner's office when we came in January of 2019. We've got 2 choices. Each department's going to have to give back 2 or 3% of their budget, or we're going to have to start cutting employees. And the decision then was, we're going to do everything possible not to cut a single employee. Now, it's happening through attrition because we're not, with the pay we're giving, people are not applying like they used to in large numbers.
I'm fully aware.
That's why we have 25 plus openings.
Yep.
We're not competitive, and that's the conundrum we're in.
But we're never going to be competitive with the private market.
We're not going to be competitive
We can't
with-
go out and make more widgets.
Exactly. Public entities do not have that luxury. We're at the mercy of the
We can't go make more
state
widgets.
government and what they give us and our revenues. Do you have a recommendation,
Well,
Chad?
I would
Because-
only say that the reason that all this, the page said to stay within our receivables is this very reason. As long as we stay within our receivables every year, we won't have to look at letting someone go. We won't have to look at laying off. And if we have a mid-year crisis, then we've got the cushion. We've got the emergency fund built up in that 20%. My initial thought was 25 in each one of those line items would make up the 50 we need, and then, leave the positions with the departments, and then everyone would get the raises based on that earlier factor, and we would be able to cover them without going into the red on our yearly receivables.
Other
I
thoughts?
agree.
Kyle? Attorney Kyle?
Citizen Councilman Kyle.
Citizen Kyle?
Yeah, we need 50. If we don't, my initial thought is if we just need that 47 or 50, how does it impact if we go into the red on the receivables a little bit when we still have a 15% plus cushion? One side of my brain says, any advisor's going to say, we want you to be able to keep bumping up your cushion to 20% in the event of this, in the event of that, in the event of things that we just don't know. The other side of my brain says, no, it's good to have a balanced budget. So if there's a way to keep the budget balanced, hit our projected raises, and then in the event that something comes up in the future where we need additional funds, we've got the cash balance there. So
Conundrum?
that's where my brain's at right now, just processing everything through.
See, that is the nice, if we do take it out of the budget, it doesn't mean it goes away. We still have a general fund balance of over $2 million. So if we have another lawsuit, then the council next year could do an additional appropriation to cover that commissioner's lawsuit, because we have the cushion, we have the emergency fund. But I think this council has done a phenomenal job over the last 4 years of actually budgeting what we spend instead of cushioning things. And that's how we have been able to build up that emergency fund because we've controlled the spending on the front end, and then on the back end, if we have, because I'm certain we're going to have to do some additionals this year. We always do.
Right.
I know that there's going to be additionals.
We know
So, but we also try to limit those and budget directly on. So, I mean,
I think most department heads do a good job of staying within the budget and only asking for additional when it's absolutely essential for the running of their department. I go back to the fact that over 60% of the counties of 40 to 50,000 were either 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 9 across the board. So our goal from the beginning is to give as meaningful raises as humanly possible without putting us at risk economically if there is a downturn, which we can not project. We just can't, because no one predicted a 9% inflation rate a year ago. We knew at the time it was increasing rapidly, and that our 3.5 overall that we were giving was not going to probably meet the growing inflation rate. But it hurt me when we left on the 10th 3% when there's a 9% inflation. And then when I look at the AIC numbers that we're paying so low. Now, these counties are not donut counties around Indianapolis that does have a phenomenally high assessed valuation compared with us. These are DeKalb, which is north of Fort Wayne, Du Bois, Jackson, LaGrange, Lawrence, which is Bedford, Marshall, which is Plymouth, Noble, that's up there by Whitley, and Shelby, which you know about. They have the horse track, which helps their assessed valuation. They have about $1 million. Yeah, they're a lot higher than we are, about half again as much high as we are. I'm back to let's get as meaningful raises as we possibly can without jeopardizing what our financial advisors are telling us that we need to do to stay stable and have a little buffer for that unexpected emergency. So do we have a recommendation?
So I'll make a recommendation to see if we can get a consensus. I recommend that we lower the insurance fund by $25,000, lower the this commissioner's insurance fund by $25,000, the commissioner's legal fund by $25,000, and put the position back into the auditor's office and give the raises as we had agreed on with the percentages. Let me get to them again so I can make sure I read this. So at or above low market was $750, 5% or less at off from low market $1,000, 5% to 10% got $1,500, 10% and up got $2,500, and then poll 4s and 5s got $3,000.
I agree.
Kyle, Harold, Betsy? Got 3 agrees.
This is Betsy. I'm good with that.
What did she say? Okay. Kyle?
Yeah, I'm good.
He's got it on his spreadsheet.
We're going to go back and have that same meeting we were going to have where we can sit down with everybody with your HR, with your payroll list. I think we have to do that so we don't get into that mess last year.
Right.
I have a spreadsheet, but I think it's best if we, because originally our meeting this week until it went, we canceled it. She's just wants to make sure that we're going to work with her to make sure all the payroll is correct.
So it goes into the
So we're going to meet with her later to enter all the payroll with her payroll clerk so that everything, so we don't have the confusion we had last year when we did this. So we're going to meet with her and the payroll clerk after the fact, was her question.
Last year it was real confusing because it was our first attempt to try to get everybody closer to market, where in the past everybody either got a straight percentage or a straight like $1,000 raise. Last year it was stair-stepped by trying to keep everybody in the same category, the same raise. But it was the first time we ever attempted that, and it wasn't decided until like the 11th hour before the deadline of our meeting to make it the hearing. So we're trying to do it so it's not last minute for her entering what needs to be entered. And you do have that on a spreadsheet. So.
I do have a spreadsheet, but see, we use the spreadsheet provided by Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy. We don't use a spreadsheet provided by the county because Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy provides us with market values. And so we have to basically, we are this year, instead of just sending this over to the auditor's office and say, figure it out, we're going to hold another meeting to go through with the payroll clerk so we can go through line item by line item and make sure everything's correct and we don't have the issues we had last year.
And
that was what we're going to do.
And we need to try to do that prior to Thursday?
Do we need to do that prior to Thursday, or it can be after, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it can be after.
So what you're saying is you're going to go through and make sure everybody's classified the way they are and how they should be paid?
Yes.
Well, we're going to make sure that if you're a Comet 3, you get the raise that a Comet 3 does. We're not going to classify people. We're just going to make sure that everybody gets the raises in the based on their class that they already have. We're not reclassifying. We're just going to, based on whatever class you are, Comet 3, Pole 2, Pat 3, whatever, then this is the amount of raise you get. And that way there is no confusion, because last year what we found is this spreadsheet, because, for example, the council, there's 7 of us on the council. There are 4 in the assessor's office who are Comet 3s. There are multiple people, so we have to, and we don't have names on here, so we have to match up their name list with our class list.
And we might want to end, we might want to end in that meeting to make sure that we're doing everything according to job category classification, because last year there were some discrepancies.
Right, so hopefully there won't be,
We found that last year we left a few people, there was a few people left off of this list.
Right.
That worked for the county by either they were a new hire and they were not on our list,
Right.
or so by doing it this way, we won't, once they start in January, we're not going to, starting January 1st, the auditor's office will not have the issues they had this year with figuring it all out.
Right.
So that's what this next meeting's about. Nothing will change. I mean, once we make the consensus, then this will be set, and then we'll vote on it in the meeting.
Thursday, 6
I
o'clock.
think we already,
So somebody that's already classified and, they might get the 3% raise, but they're not going to get a 20% raise.
well, there's no real 3%. Like I said, it goes through that
But out of the
$750,000.
raises that you're predicting,
Yeah.
saying that
It's an average.
and we appreciate all the effort that, goes through doing this. I just want you to be fair with all of us.
Yeah.
And I don't think, somebody that's doing the same job that they've been doing should get a 20% raise.
Understood.
I just want it to be fair with everybody.
And we do too. And I know it sometimes comes across plain favorites. We try not to. We really try not to.
Yeah, nobody's getting a 20% raise in this.
I think-
Nobody's coming close to a 20% raise.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking 3, 4, 5% raises is the average across the board.
Okay. I never conceded.
I don't think Kyle did either.
I think he did.
Okay,
He did, and I do too. I do too. So we're going to proceed with what we verbally talked about. You have it on your spreadsheet. It goes $750 to $3,000 for poll.
So did you
5.
guys write down the add back, the subtractions and the add back for your position then, Debbie?
I did, I got the 25 on legal insurance back.
Okay.
We also confirmed, correct, that we're raising the minimum for part-time from $12.50 an hour to $13 an hour at an approximate cost of $30,000.
The only exception I will add is there's still one in the assessor's office that we need her to weigh in on. The part-time you have in the assessor's office, you asked to hold last year. Are you still wanting that held at that rate, or do you want to take her to that $13 an hour rate?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess it's up to the department head is what we're saying, but
Job classification, you'd have to come back through job classification if we don't change it now, but yes. Well, not necessarily, because if we make it across the board, then the minimum rate for part-time would be $13 an hour. The only question I have is, when we also included those who are above $13 an hour got a 50-cent raise. That's where we got the 30,000. So basically, it wasn't, we set.
It's not a
we went from
minimum.
12.50 to 13. So basically, we gave every part-time person a 50-cent raise is what it actually equates to. So that's what I'm asking is, do you want to leave yours at 10 or do you want to take her to 10.50? Okay, so we could say across the board a 50-cent raise on every part-time, including the COs, including Linda's part-times, Jody's part-times. I don't think Bill has any. I don't know if Jenny has any. Health department has some. Park has some.
We added part-time back into,
Right, the budget.
yeah, but I don't remember what we added it at. Commissioners added, oh,
Your part-time rate is set at $14.50.
okay, I couldn't remember what it was that you were talking about part-time. I'm
I
like,
think
we
there's a
added
job
one.
description set at $14.50, so I think it would go to 15
Okay,
then.
I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure we didn't forget that.
Yeah.
And last year, we started out that you had a spreadsheet of what people were paid, and it was a variation, but we had people getting less than $10 an hour part-time. And we realized that was not only not competitive, it wasn't right.
People at the park were chopping down trees for $9.25 an hour. That was bad.
So we raised that countywide to $12.50, and now we're talking 13 to, which doesn't hit inflation, but it comes close. The only other thing we talked about was allowing probation to reinstitute longevity. Did we have a consensus on that when we talked about it on around August the 8th?
I think we did.
Okay, so
I think it was good for next year. I think this letter that Susan sent over along with
wanted
Judge
effective
Crane
immediately.
wanted it
Yeah.
to be effective this year, and she's saying she's willing to give up the funds in her budget. I believe we would need to vote on that in our council meeting, correct?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
So-
we were talking January 1st.
January
like
1st, I
everybody
think the
else.
consensus was that they would be added to the longevity, and we made that change in their budget, correct, Debbie? We made that change in their budget, taking it out of that line item. Okay, but this would be, we have to vote this, for whether or not to allow it this year, if she wants that.
So
Basically, she's asking for an
We should tell her,
transfer.
Kenan, that she should come and ask us Thursday.
Okay, we'll get a copy to you.
Yeah, it was dated August 5th. If you could put that on the itinerary, Debbie, vote on probation when we talk about raises and the budget. I'd appreciate it. I don't know if Betsy's still on. Betsy, you still on? You have any thoughts, comments, if you're on?
I'm here, yeah. I'm fine with all of that.
Okay, I think we did get a consensus, if not unanimous, of those of you who are here. So, anything else? Anybody? Again, we meet at 6 o'clock this Thursday in here. When we moved our meetings from 6 to 3:30, the stated goal at the time, so those department heads would more readily be able to attend. And I will say that Jenny has been regularly attending practically all of them, and I think Steve Rust has attended many of them. So you're encouraged if you have questions. We do live stream them as we did today. I think this is the first year we live streamed all the budget hearings to try to be as transparent as possible, but this is good so that you can hear what our goals are, possibly to dispel rumors, I'm not sure, but all of us are open, and our phone numbers are and email addresses are on the county website. So please don't hesitate to contact us. Have to press it.
Is there any problems or concerns?
Come on up, Stephanie.
So can you explain to me what the issue is changing the job classifications of employees that are taking on more? Like and in the long run, it would save you guys money because you don't have to pay insurance and fringe and all of that on that position.
So there's no issue with reclassing people. But we can't just pay someone more for taking on more work if we don't reclass them.
Then why can't we do that? Why can't we reclass those
I
positions?
think it's an option to do that. It's just not an option to do it today. I mean, if there's a process that takes time where Debbie could write new job descriptions and we could send them off and have them reevaluated. But we just can't do that today.
That's
And,
one of-
and
Well, and I'm not saying do it today, but like, why can't it be part of
I think
this
it's,
budget, like our new budget? and
I think
things
it's
like that?
open, but if we go through job classification and Wagner, Irwin, Shealy, which is historically the way we've done, Chad oversees job classification. He can probably address more. It will take more than a month, and
And we
usually-
have found that, let's say the point system is 100 to 120 for your job. The new rewrite you may have been at 102, and the rewrite had you at 117, so your job class didn't change. We've had several that have done that in the past, that they think their job class would change, or they think there would be something different, and they're not when they come in. So there is no guarantee. If you take it back to Wagner and you write it up, they may came back that, yeah, you're at the exact same class. So there is no guarantee that your class may change. We are also set up on a revolving, what is it, Ann, every 4 years, I think? Every 4 years that job classifications get looked at in every department. So I don't know exactly when the auditor's been done, but we are supposed to be doing that every 4 years on a revolving basis. So, I mean, I think that's something that the HR department should kind of head up. Well, the requests have gone out. Yeah. Well, I completely get that, because how many requests have I had for employees to join the job classification committee, and I can't get anybody to raise their hand to do it. We can't even hold meetings at times because I can't get voting members to join. It's insane to me, because it's literally the committee that decides how much you guys get paid, and no one wants to raise their hand to join it. It's kind of crazy, but
Well,
yeah.
and right now, what happens is he has to postpone or cancel the meeting, and what would have had employee input comes directly to the council. And I think it's always best to have employee input, because you know what best goes on within your own department and your own job. We've not had the luxury of doing that because he's never had a quorum. 9 times out of the last 10, or give 8 out of the last 10, he's not had a quorum. And so what would have been discussed with employee input comes right to the council, and we don't benefit from that input from the employees.
Yeah.
So it's not too late to join that. Chad won't be around maybe as a citizen next year, but he won't be around to head it. So,
I think your thinking is good. You know, if within a department, if 8 people are willing to take on the responsibilities of 9, and it's just hopefully that the job classification would reflect that. And we just can't guarantee
Right, and I
that it
understand
would.
that, but like,
Right.
also
And
it made it
yeah.
seem like you guys weren't gonna look at that either, like that
No.
option was like, we're getting our position back, that's scratched. So that's why I wanted to see why that was an issue, like why we couldn't look at that.
I think and it doesn't have to be done during budget time either. I mean, Debbie could, if it takes a few months to get those back, we can always revisit it. So,
I think it's still on the table. It just can't get done in this budget cycle. But
Right.
it's not a closed idea. It's open.
Okay, well, it came off as it was closed, so that's why I wanted to ask
Right.
about it.
I don't
sorry.
think it
We
is.
were just trying to make decisions we needed to make for today, so we might not
No,
have
so
communicated
obviously,
that.
we encourage all department heads to get with the HR department and get on that 4-year rotation. Because
It's certainly not discouraged.
I also think we need to keep keep in mind that, and this isn't a knock on the job, a knock on the job classification system. I've never been a fan of anything that tries to put human beings into specific boxes or categories. There are always going to be anomalies in places where you just don't fit. So I think anything we do from a job classification standpoint, we need to keep in mind that not everything is automatically going to fit, and you can only get paid this because this is where you fall as far as the boxes are concerned. I think we need to see if there's any kind of an overarching additional tag that you can give an employee that would allow additional compensation. Sure, you fall into this category, but because of the market rates that we can pay, and we've got 25 openings, and we can't fill the positions that we've budgeted for in these specific departments because we don't have people applying for them, you're naturally going to have employees that are already there that are going to pick up the slack. So I think there needs to be a way to have a, I don't know, an asterisk that you can stick next to an employee that has a classification that's additional to reflect, hey, this person is classified as this category, but because of the circumstances, we need to give them this additional classification, which entitles them to be paid from the money that's already budgeted into the budget that department has. I think that's something that we should look at, and that just became clear to me as we've talked about this morning. So there's my 2 cents.
And Kyle, I think that asterisk is considering SOs. That gives us flexibility. But we do lean heavily on Wagner, Irwin, Shealy, so that it's more of an objective process based on market rate. Unfortunately, in central Indiana, because I know the market rates down by the Ohio River is less than the donut counties in Indy, because I've been in communication with somebody down in Clark County, and their market rate's below ours. It's very competitive around the Indy area, which we're lumped into, unfortunately.
If there's any of you interested in being on the job classification committee, go to your boss. I'm sure they'll let you do it. It's maybe 1 hour a month, isn't it? Wouldn't you say, Chad? About 1 hour a month?
Every other month?
Yeah, if we meet 5 or 6 times a year on average. So you get paid as an employee to do it, paid or comp time.
It's got a lot of pluses. It helps us out to get your input. We really appreciate what every one of you does. It doesn't always come across that way.
It could be to your benefit greatly, depending on what the issue is, plus your workmates. So keep that in mind.
Any closing comments from anyone? Again, we appreciate what each and every one of you do. The county wouldn't operate without you. We appreciate the time the department heads met with us. Each of you, I think 90% at least met with us, give thoughts before we even headed into our first budget hearing. That was appreciated. Again, our phone numbers are listed. You can text or call any of us, I do believe. Harold would prefer call. And our email addresses are in the county webpage. So thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn, even though I didn't have a motion to
So moved.
move? Thank you. Thank you all. God bless.
If anybody wants to know where they fall